the most recent Miami Heat hidden gem. Now, his name is Cole Swider. He's a player that may not be new to you and isn't necessarily new to the NBA either. So he was drafted in 2021, or drafted in 2022 by the Lakers. Well, wasn't drafted, he was undrafted. He was signed an undrafted free agency by the Lakers. He went to college at Syracuse, a great college with a lot of history. Went undrafted in the NBA, draft in 2022, went to the South Bay Lakers and was on their G League team. A player who I'd heard really good things about, but then saw him on the G League in the first season, and this guy was lights out from three. He was knocking them down. And that's when you get a prospect like that who you don't see a lot of. You get him in short bursts and you see, wow, he's just knocking down shots. So off the rip, that gets your attention. Because in the modern day NBA, you have to be able to shoot the three. Don't care who you are. I almost don't even care what position you play. You could be a centre. At this point in the NBA, you need to be able to shoot the three. At least have something in your bag from three, And it's safe to say Cole Swider had a lot more than that. He had a lot more in his bag from three than he had a lot more in his bag than just an average 3-point shot. He had a very good 3-point shot and it was clean. But the first season in the G League for Cole Swider, he was injured a lot. I think he might have had one bad injury that first season in the South Bay Lakers, and we really didn't see him too much in the G League. Second season comes round, he's more fit, he plays a lot more minutes, and we see him absolutely knock it down. We see him absolutely knock it down from three in the G League. Let's see if I can find the stats for that. Probably not. What am I looking at? Yeah, I probably can't see the stats for that, for him in the G League. But, like I said, a guy who's knocking it down, and as a Lakers fan, I'm thinking, okay, well, we've now got another option that can fill in at the four and can knock it down. So I imagine Darvin Ham at the Lakers at the time probably thinking something similar to me, and he brings him in, and he kind of gets exposed at the NBA level a bit, because we're like, all we've seen from him is, he's knocking down threes, great, that's what we need, that's what every team needs, but what else is he doing? Because just being a shooter isn't enough. So we're seeing him on defense, he's getting hounded, right? This guy, he's got, I want to say, almost negative on defense, because he's got very little athleticism. He's not very fast, In terms of being an athlete, he's not amazing. So he gets breezed past by a lot of defenders, Gets breezed past a lot on defensive possessions. He can't really stay in front of, guards. So he's too slow to guard NBA guards and too weak to guard NBA bigs. So in terms of an athlete, he really is a negative in that sense. But we're thinking maybe he's a bit of a player who can, maybe he can, when he's got the ball in his hand, maybe he can make stuff happen. He can create his own shot. He can dribble, move a bit. He didn't really have that either. And like we said, he's not physical enough to offensively dominate NBA bigs, and he's not quick enough to breeze past NBA guard defenders. So he's really in no man's land there, where he's too small and too slow. So he kind of gets hounded on defense, kind of gets stuck in the mud on offense, although he's able to, when plays are written up for him, he can find himself in the right spots and he can knock it down. But he needs to be in those right spots, and obviously G League, it's easier to do that than in the NBA. So you're going to try and do that at the NBA. It's not going to work as much, but it's still going to work sometimes. But we saw in the NBA last season, he was only given, 5 minutes per game. 5 minutes per game. And and if you're spending half the time defending, because the NBA is, it's a really up and down sport in terms of quick transitions. You could spend 2 or 3 of that 5 minutes defending, and he's not a good defender. So there may be 2 or 3 minutes of that time is actually on offense, and he has to hope in those plays he finds himself open and can knock down his shot. Because if you've got a team that can lock down Cole Swider, or if you've got a Cole Swider on an off night where his 3-point shot's not falling, then you're going to have problems. You're going to have problems. But we saw this season in the NBA Summer League so far, he could potentially be another one of these Miami Heat hidden gems. So far in the Summer League, he's averaged nearly 27 minutes per game. So he's getting more time on the court, which will only be a good thing. He's not that young. I'm sure he did do, 3 or 4 years at college. So he's not a super young prospect. He's not a 19-year-old coming into the league where, okay, he's got a three-point shot, but we can work on him as an athlete to try and build him up. I think Cole Swider might be, 23, 24 at this point. So in terms of athleticism, what you've got is kind of what you've got. That being said, players can always improve in that sort of thing. And you would think every day at the training facility, that's one of the things they're working for. But we've seen him play 27 minutes per game for the Miami Heat in the Summer League so far. He's, averaged 19 points per game, knocking them down at an insanely efficient clip of between 46 and 56% of from three, which is ridiculously efficient. Now, we know it's the Summer League. We know it's guys that aren't at the highest level. We know that it's guys that aren't necessarily going to play at the NBA level. It's possible, a lot of these guys are probably going to go back down to the G League, and if they do play in the NBA, they're not going to get huge minutes initially. And the pace is going to be a bit slower. The tempo is going to be a bit slower, which, again, suits a guy like Cole Swider because he's not an amazing athlete like that. But ultimately, in 2024, if you've got a player that can knock down his threes, the chances of you having a spot on an NBA roster is a lot higher than if you can't. Really, really and truly. That's what it comes down to, because three-point shooting is so valuable. And the Miami Heat, in Cole Swider, have got potential three-point shooting for very, very cheap. Now, if you're in a certain type of game and you've got certain guys on the floor, playmakers that can attract attention, maybe attract a double, and then you can have Cole Swider open in the corner, he's one of the best in terms of knocking them down. We've seen it in the G League, we've seen it in the Summer League. He can knock those shots down. But it's ultimately, can you get him in those positions? Because Cole Swider, he's playing for the Miami Heat, so he's going to be competing for a role with the likes of, Duncan Robinson. A lot of people are saying, Duncan Robinson is a poor man's Cole Swider. No, Cole Swider is a poor man's Duncan Robinson, rather. Yeah, he's a poor man Duncan Robinson, because Duncan Robinson, his game is essentially the same. Knock down threes. On defense, he's gonna get hounded. On offense, if he's not shooting threes, he's probably gonna get hounded. That being said, Duncan Robinson probably is the better athlete out of the two, and that's not saying much, because Duncan Robinson historically is not a great athlete, because he gets hounded on defense for the same reason as Cole Swider. But at least Duncan Robinson's got how many years? 6 years of NBA experience at this point, and has shot nearly 40% on threes for his entire career in the NBA. If you're Spo and you're looking at, okay, in terms of out of these two, I'm probably giving Duncan Robinson more game time, but I've sort of got a natural heir to Duncan Robinson's role in Cole Swider. If he's happy to stay on at this level and play for the Summer League and play for the G League, and if he really works on locking on defense and just either locking in on defense or just becoming a better athlete and adding more strings to his bow, then there's no reason why Cole Swider in a year, 2 years can't replace Duncan Robinson. It all just depends on how Cole Swider values himself, because if Cole Swider is like, well, I think I'm as good as Duncan Robinson now, so I want to be starting, then he may be one of these players that asks for too much and finds himself out of the league quite soon, and then finds himself playing in Europe or wherever. But if he's talking to Spo and he's willing to trust the process, I certainly don't count out a future where we see a Cole Swider, maybe not in the starting 11, but getting some good rotational minutes and, coming off the bench. Say he knocks down 2 or 3 big shots, averages 6 or 8 points a game, And as long as he can't be a huge defensive liability, maybe chucks in a couple of rebounds, that's not bad. And considering you got him for free also, considering he was a player that, you know, was essentially undrafted free agency, was picked up by the Lakers, then, you know, the Lakers decided they didn't want to extend his contract. And you know, you pick him up for free, probably dirt cheap contract, probably a two-way or a minimum. That's not bad. I don't think that's too bad.